Peter and Elizabeth Leech. Peter Leech and Elizabeth Adam enjoyed a shipboard romance and then a long and successful life together as colonists in Otago.
Peter Leech was born here at Loch Orr in 1836. Spent his early years on Rock Hill Farm in this beautiful but remote part of Argyll. He seems to have been orphaned in childhood, but he was lucky enough to get support from one of Scotland's oldest charities and be taken into the orphan hospital, the original purpose of this rather elaborate building, now the Museum of Modern Art here in Edinburgh, and receive a really good education.
He then worked as a clerk in the city for several years before making the decision to emigrate to Otago, paying £16 for his passage and steerage on the Robert Henderson in 1858. He came to Otago armed with letters of introduction to the Reverend Thomas Burns and to Blundell pioneer and stonemason John Matthew of Halfway Bush, with whom he stayed until securing his first job as a teacher at Otago in 1858. But he did not head into the countryside on his own. He had already secured that most important asset for any young colonial male, a wife.
Elizabeth Adam was born in about 1838 near Edinburgh. Her father, William Adam, had begun life as a stable boy and gradually risen to become coachman for Sir Patrick Stewart at his Eagles Carney estate here in East Lothian. Domestic service like this often involved frequent moves, and the Adam children were born at various locations all around lowland Scotland.
William Adam was one of the founding members of the Free Church, and he took a lively interest in its plan to settle Otago in the mid-1840s. But he was clearly a cautious man too. His family made the move to Otago in several groups, beginning with the eldest son, Thomas, who came on the Strathmore in 1856. The second son, William, followed the next year on the Robert Henderson, accompanied by his older sister, Elizabeth. William Sr. finally came himself in 1858, with his wife and their remaining 5 children on the Norma Hull.
There were opportunities for passengers to mix and mingle up on deck, especially during the nighttime dances that was such a feature of life aboard many immigrant ships. And it was perhaps on one of these occasions that Elizabeth first made the acquaintance of 19-year-old Peter Leech.
Once in New Zealand, Peter and Elizabeth kept in touch and their shipboard romance blossomed. Neither would have had any difficulty getting work in Otago at this time because there was a high demand for workers, particularly for young women to act as domestic servants. Elizabeth was a skilled needlewoman, and this would have enhanced her prospects considerably. We know from a surviving letter that in late 1858 she was working at Ashburn, Goodwood in North Otago, and sent money from her wages there to her parents in Dunedin. In May 1859, Peter Leech secured a job as the first teacher at a brand new school at Otago, also known as Otakia and Otakaya, but then called Moiraki Bush, on the far side of the Taieri Plain.
He and Elizabeth married the next month in Dunedin at her father's house. Her wedding dress is actually in the Toitu collection. They then moved into the 3-room schoolhouse at Otago that was to be their home as well as Peter's workplace. Later that year, Elizabeth's family joined them at Otago, where William Adam Sr. was to establish an accommodation house. According to his strict total abstinence principles, this was a temperance establishment that served no liquor. It prospered nonetheless, especially after 1861, when gold was discovered inland and traffic up the Taieri River increased markedly. The Adam Accommodation House became a popular accommodation spot for Goldfields travellers and also an official stopping point for the gold escort.
When the Leeches moved on to Curry Bush School in 1878, the Otago settlers gave Peter a gold watch and chain as a farewell gift. Elizabeth was presented with a Singer sewing machine. Soon after, Peter gave up teaching and began farming at Curry Bush on the coast eastwards of Otago.
Elizabeth died there in 1901, aged 63. They had raised 8 daughters and 5 sons, and they were highly regarded as stalwart Presbyterian pioneers. Peter survived her until 1924, and the last of the first generation of Leech children died in 1962. The community then erected the Leech Memorial Hall here at Taieri Mouth in testimony to the family's long association with this district.